The millionaire noticed his maid stay calm as Robberies took over. Her next move shocked the world. The chandelier rattled as a deafening gunshot cracked through the mansion's grand hall. Dust showered from above, and terrified screams filled the air. Guests scrambled, clutching at the floor. Children sobbed, their tiny hands shielding their ears. Men in expensive suits dove for cover, and the women clung to their children desperately. "On your knees! Hands where I can see them!" A masked man barked, waving a pistol with violent force. His tone was sharp, guttural, like gravel grinding against metal. Another robber aimed directly at the millionaire, a man dressed in a spotless white suit. His pale face glistened with sweat, and his trembling hands rose in surrender. Please take whatever you want," the millionaire stammered. "Shut up," the gunman roared, pressing the barrel close to his forehead. "We'll take everything. One more word and you'll be the first to bleed." The millionaire's wife clutched her 3 children tightly, tears streaking her face. "Please, don't hurt them." "Quiet, lady," another robber snapped, pointing his weapon toward her. "One more sound and I'll put a bullet in the floor right next to you." Chaos thundered through the room, crying children, gasping guests, men groveling for their lives. But amid the panic, a strange calm appeared. The maid. She stepped forward, slowly and deliberately. Her hands were raised, but her eyes did not tremble. There was no quiver in her voice, no fear in her movements, only steady resolve. "You," one of the robbers snarled. "Get on the floor now." She shook her head softly. "The children are behind me. If they see your guns pointed at them, they'll scream louder." "What did you just say?" His finger twitched on the trigger. "You heard me." Her voice was calm, far too calm. "Lower the gun. You frighten them more than you frighten me." The robber hesitated, just for a moment. His mask concealed his face, but his body betrayed doubt. "Move her," the leader snapped. "She's in the way." But the maid didn't move. Instead, she stood straighter, her palms open, her gaze firm. "Jewelry, money, phones, fill the bag," the leader barked, tossing a sack at one of the guests. Hands shook as valuables clattered inside. Watches, wallets, rings, and phones piled up while the robbers screamed at every mistake. Yet the maid's voice sliced through the tension. "You're shouting because you're afraid," she said. Every head turned. The leader marched forward, gun aimed at her forehead. "What did you say?" "You're afraid," she repeated evenly. "Every time you yell, your finger jerks. Afraid men make mistakes, and mistakes get people killed. If you want to leave alive, keep your hand steady, keep your voice down." The robber's weapon pressed hard against her skin, leaving a faint mark. His teeth clenched. "Say that again." "You don't want to pull that trigger." For the first time, silence swept the room. Not fear, but the kind of silence that comes when everyone realizes something has shifted. The guests stared. The millionaire whispered under his breath, "Who is she?" Because this was no ordinary maid. The millionaire's wife clutched her children tighter, whispering frantic prayers. The guests trembled, yet all eyes stayed fixed on the maid. She stood unflinching, as though the gun pressed against her forehead meant nothing at all. "Boss, we don't have time," one robber hissed nervously. "The cops will be here soon." "Shut up," the leader snapped, but even his voice cracked under the weight of tension. The maid tilted her head slightly, her voice steady as stone. "He's right. You're wasting time. Every second you argue with me, the police get closer. You came here for money. Leave with it. That's your only chance." Her words struck deeper than the gun pressed against her. The robber's hand trembled. He tried to mask it with a snarl, but everyone could see. "Don't test me," he hissed. "I'm not testing you," she said. "I'm warning you. Mistakes cost lives, and I don't think you came here to be murderers." A thick silence wrapped the room. Only the quiet sobs of children broke it. The leader's jaw tightened as he turned to his men. "Tie them up, all of them. We'll take what we can and go." The other robbers rushed to obey. One yanked the millionaire to his knees, shoving his face toward the floor. Another grabbed his wife by the arm, dragging her forward. The children wailed, terror choking their tiny voices. "Please, don't touch them," the millionaire cried, his voice raw. Then it happened again. The maid's voice cut through like a blade. "Stop!" The word was sharp, commanding. It froze the robbers mid-motion. Even the crying quieted, as if everyone sensed the shift in her tone. "You tie up the adults if you want," she said firmly, "but you do not touch the children, not one finger." The leader spun toward her. "Or what?" Her eyes locked on his, unwavering. "Or you'll regret it." The millionaire blinked in shock. This was no plea. It was a warning, laced with authority that seemed completely out of place in the mouth of a servant. The robbers hesitated. One muttered nervously, "Boss?" "She's not scared." The leader snarled, grabbing her arm. "Who are you?" Her response was cold, her voice low. "The wrong person to threaten." Then she moved. In a blur, faster than anyone could track, her elbow slammed into his wrist. The gun clattered to the ground. Before his cry of pain even echoed, she twisted his arm behind his back, forcing him down to his knees. Gasps erupted across the hall. "Get her!" another robber roared, raising his weapon. But the maid was already in motion. She ducked, rolled, and in one fluid strike snatched the fallen gun. With the precision of someone well-trained, she disarmed the second robber, kicking his weapon across the floor. Then came a sharp strike, a palm to the jaw, and the man dropped instantly, knocked cold. The millionaire's eyes went wide. His heart thundered. She's trained. The third robber froze, his gun shaking violently in his hands. The maid leveled her weapon at him, her stance steady, unyielding. "Drop it," she commanded. He hesitated, breathing hard. "I said drop it." The gun clattered to the floor. In that moment, every guest, every child, every terrified soul understood the truth. The maid was no longer just a servant in the shadows. She was something far more dangerous. The leader groaned on the carpet, his arm twisted behind his back. The maid pressed the barrel of the gun firmly against his head. Her voice was ice. "You came here thinking this house was easy prey, but you forgot sometimes the quietest person in the room is the most dangerous." The room was frozen in disbelief. The once terrifying robbers now looked like frightened boys. Their leader lay pinned to the carpet, groaning in pain, the cold steel of his own weapon pressed against his skull. The remaining two knelt helplessly, their guns scattered across the marble floor. The millionaire stared in shock, his chest heaving. His voice barely escaped his throat. How did you—" "Later," the maid cut him off, her tone sharp, eyes still locked on the trembling criminals. Sirens began to wail faintly in the distance. The sound grew louder with every second, creeping into the hall like a storm closing in. The robbers' eyes widened in panic. "The police," one of them whispered. The maid's voice snapped like a command. "On your knees, hands behind your heads, now." For the first time, the men obeyed. They shuffled forward, their bravado shattered, their arms raised in surrender. The guests stared in stunned silence, unable to believe what they were witnessing. Moments later, the front doors burst open. Armed officers stormed in, weapons raised, barking orders. But what they found wasn't chaos. It was order, an impossible order. The robbers were already subdued, kneeling in a line, their weapons far out of reach. And at the center of it all stood the maid, calm, steady, holding the gun like she'd done it 1,000 times before. The chief officer's eyes narrowed. "Who restrained them?" The millionaire's lips parted, still trembling. She did." Gasps rippled through the guests. Heads turned toward the maid. The officer studied her, brows raised. "Name." The maid finally lowered the weapon, exhaling as if she had been holding her breath for hours. "Naomi." The name carried weight in the air, as if it belonged to someone who could never simply be a servant. When the officers hauled the robbers away, the tension in the room began to dissolve. Guests cried out in relief, mothers clung to children, and men shook each other's hands, still trembling. The millionaire approached Naomi slowly, his steps hesitant. His hands still shook. "Naomi, who are you?" Her eyes, calm and steady, met his. "Once I was military, then I chose quiet work. But some habits don't disappear." The millionaire swallowed hard, his voice cracking. You saved us. You saved my children. I'll never forget this." Naomi shook her head gently. "Don't thank me. Just remember, courage doesn't come from money. It comes from refusing to let fear control you." The smallest child, eyes wide with admiration, ran to her and clung to her apron. "You weren't scared," the little one whispered. Naomi knelt, brushing her hand gently over the child's hair. "I was scared," she admitted softly. "But I didn't let fear win. That's the difference." The millionaire looked at her as if seeing her for the very first time. Not as a maid, not as an employee, but as the reason his family was alive. And as the officers led the captured robbers away, the story began to spread, of a quiet maid who stared down death, who turned fear into courage, who had done what no one else dared. That night, whispers carried her name, Naomi, the woman who reminded them all that sometimes the quietest voice can be the strongest. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more emotional, dramatic, and unexpected tales. And let us know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? We love hearing from all of you. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep watching. Curious.